This video will show you how to do the routine maintenance on a RCC10 2-inch pressure chamber. And before we get started, if you have a chamber and it's in really bad shape, or you don't have the tools or time to do this, we have a core exchange program on these where we completely go through and rebuild the whole chamber, and it's for $175. So it's totally worth it if you just need to drop a chamber in and get running again. We offer two maintenance kits. The first one is the ORS 40. Comes with both O-rings, your stainless washers, and your rubber sealing washers, and also your dielectric silicone. The second maintenance kit is the RCC 71 SA. That comes with your shim, your brush adapter, and your dielectric glass. Tools you'll need: a Phillips and flathead, 7/64 Allen wrench, and a pick or some sort of tool to get the O-rings out of the end caps. So first thing I start with, take your end cap off, fold that over, and set that aside. Sometimes these get warped and kind of get in a funky shape, so if they are, you can order a new one. So once you have all the screws out of these, to make it easier on yourself before trying to take the end caps off, give each side a twist. Sometimes those O-rings get a little melted onto the metal and it makes them hard to remove. So I start with this side, and you want to get your screwdriver, place it on there and right here. And when you're prying, you don't want to pry pry a lot on one side at all. You want to do it in little increments on each side so you don't break that glass. Some are a little harder than others, so just make sure you take your time with it so you don't break anything. A little bit of water. Come to the other side. Same thing. Oh, it came out pretty easy. Once you have it like that, the whole glass comes out. And you can just pop that off. Get your brush. And your metal shim is inside. Sometimes these brushes and these end caps get really dirty. These are fairly dirty. Brush is pretty good. But sometimes they'll get like this where the end of the bristles are kind of melted, and you'll just want to replace that brush if it's looking like that. Or if your end caps look like this, you just want to replace them. So if you are reusing your end caps, you want to remove the 4 O-rings on each end cap. Sometimes these are a little difficult to get out if they're melted in there. Once you have those out, you want to get a brush or whatever you have to clean down on these seams, and you can use water and Simple Green or whatever you have to make sure it's as clean as possible. And then I'm also going to remove your fittings on the end and remove the washers that are in there, the old washers, and make sure there's not a rubber one stuck on this like that. So the next step is cleaning your chamber, which is a very important step. We use a ball hone, but if you have pretty much any kind of hone for automotive hone or anything else, you can use that. But it is very critical that you get the inside of that chamber cleaned, just to maximize the output. Next, clean our glass. Get some Scotch-Brite, whatever you have. You want to make sure it's clean where those O-rings sit. And also be careful because sometimes your glass can be cracked. So, do want to inspect these edges for cracks on both sides. And we have a brush that connects to our drill. Clean the inside. So if your brush is in good condition like this one, you can clean it. Just get some warm water and dish soap and let it soak for about 30 minutes. Once your brush is soaked, take it out. This one's in really good shape, but sometimes you turn a little blue in the middle and they get kind of soft when they bend and they'll break. So if that's the case, you want to replace your brush. So after you wash your glass off in the sink and it's dry, you want to get a rag, something that doesn't have a lot of lint or leave much stuff behind. Pretty much get your rag wet with alcohol, denatured alcohol, and wipe your glass inside and outside. And then you can also blow it off with the air compressor. Just make sure that there's not any debris or fingerprints or grease or anything left behind on the glass. Once that's clean, you can roll up your shim. Place it inside. And position the shim so it's got an even gap on each side. Then I like to put my finger, place it right there, and you can insert your brush so you're holding the shim so it doesn't slide while you slide in that brush. So you leave that like that for right now. Alright, so for end caps, if you are reusing them, you want to make sure that you cleaned really well right in here, and also as much as you can in here on the inside. Wherever those O-rings sit, you want to make sure it's clean as possible, otherwise it won't seal right around the glass. So once you have them cleaned and they're ready to go, take your stainless washer, and this is important, you make sure your stainless washer goes down first. Put in your rubber washer next, and then on the end cap that does not have the screw hole, that takes your stainless fitting. So when I re-Teflon these, you want to make sure you have maybe about a thread with no Teflon on it. Makes getting these in and not cross-threading a lot easier. So put it on the top, go back, and you can look at it, make sure it's not cross-threaded, and go down. When you're tightening these, you don't want to crank these all the way down. You want to make sure there's at least 2-3 threads or so sticking out the top still. If you tighten it down too much, it'll crunch the inside and it can put pressure on the glass and you can crack it. So we'll leave that one good. And then you repeat the same thing. Stainless down first in the hole, and then your rubber seal washer. So it should be oriented like that. So your high voltage, the one with the screw hole, has your plastic 90, and the one with no hole has your stainless. Next thing, we're going to grab our O-ring lube. It should look like that. 2 O-rings in the middle, 2 O-rings on the outside. Alright, so once you have your O-rings installed, your glass clean, make sure you're working on a new clean surface. You don't have any grease from the O-rings on your hands while you're touching the glass. So that high voltage screw that you took out of this end cap, you're going to re-Teflon. Put a little bit of Teflon tape on it. Make sure your wire is still crimp good. It's not discolored or corroded or anything. Insert that. Reinstall that. So now you got that. You can grab your glass. Screw it back on. I like to hold the shim while I tighten that. And also push it in. Once you have it kind of seated right there and you push, you should be able to hear it click 2 times going over each O-ring. Next thing you want to do, grab the chamber and the non-high voltage end cap. When you're installing these, you want to make sure you're putting downward pressure and not putting them on sideways and pinching O-rings. Alright, next thing, flip this guy up. And this one is even more important to not get crooked or twist. You want to put this glass in as straight as possible. You don't want to be twisting it or pushing on one side. You want to kind of evenly push on both sides. And again, you'll hear 2 clicks for that glass sliding over each O-ring. Alright, so if you do purchase a refurbished chamber from us, it comes with about 11 inches of cable right here. You don't need to keep that full length. That's just to ensure that this chamber can be installed in any unit. So you pretty much want to cut off any extra slack so this isn't touching any metal or rubbing into anything else or have the possibility of getting shorted out. So that will do it for this chamber. When you're done, you want to make sure that these edges are sitting flush with the chamber on both sides, that they're not crooked. And that is pretty much it. Again, if you don't have the tools or the time to do this, I recommend our chamber exchange program, where you get a completely rebuilt and tested chamber for $175.